I flush and look down, a little embarrassed. Dad keeps laughing. He has just told the story of how I ran away with my dog Bridger when I was 13. This particular story surfaces every time I am experiencing upheaval in my life. Moving to Alaska and committing to becoming a teacher has certainly created upheaval. I am not the same person I was when I started the MAT program. My identity has changed. The threat to my identity was what drove me to run away with Bridger that cold, blustery day over 15 years ago. Dad broke the news to my brother and me that the family was leaving Montana and moving to Washington, D.C. An upwelling of frustration and anger drove me to run from the room, out of the house, frantically calling out to Bridger. We were Montanans. I was a Montanan. Our identity, especially my identity, depended on our staying at our home in western Montana, with our drift boat in the Yellowstone River, our camping trips on Wade Lake, and our ski weekends at Bridger and Big Sky. My sense of place was fixed. How could we possibly leave? If I left Montana, how would I define myself? Who would I be without twilight fly casts and the first chair up alpine on Christmas morning? At 13, I had no words to express this concern for identity, so I ran, straight into a blustering December storm of ice pellets hailing from the sky. Tears blurred my vision, and every time my feet struck the ground, I heard the crunch of the frozen fescue grass under the soles of my high tops. Our house was on the very edge of town, next to an abandoned pasture that stretched for miles to the border of the forest. This bare, windswept, lonely place was my sanctuary. I spent hours out there walking with my dog Bridger. The idea of moving away was unacceptable. I felt as if my skin was too tight. I had to keep running away from Dad. It was his fault we were moving. For an hour or so, maybe I could hole up in the fort I scrapped together out of old railroad ties in a depression on the leeward side of a hill across the next line of barbed wire. I was just about to clear the barbed wire, my foot on the lowest string and my hand on an icy post, when I saw Dad. He had driven the old Honda to the end of an ATV track just before the barbed wire fence. I didn't even hear him drive up through the howling of the storm and my sobs. He stepped out of the running Honda with a pleading look. He knew I was ready to bolt at any moment. I was so surprised that I stopped. He usually lets me cool off. He usually shakes his head and says it's a phase. I stepped off the barbed wire and kicked a few rocks, inhaling exhaust as the wind gusted and shifted. I looked back up at Dad and met his eyes. This was different. He was worried. He didn't want this either. My desperation scared him, and just maybe he understood for once. I did lose my identity. I shattered against the blacktop cul-de-sacs of the D.C. suburbs. But I learned to survive, adapt, and piece together my shattered identity into something new, someone new. One has to shatter in order to shed the parts of one's identity that one has outgrown. Alaska has the same power to shatter and reshape, and I can hear Dad laughing from here. He's not as worried as he used to be.